Kyle Busch made his announcement. Kyle Larson says he would have 50 wins already if they still had the Gen 6 car. Richard Childress went all Days of Thunder, and Homestead maybe coming back for the championship finale. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. On Sunday night after the race, Kyle Busch tweeted out, news coming Monday at 18:51. For all the people that don't do military time, that's 6:51 p.m. in the evening. That time came around on Monday, and it was not what people on the internet were speculating because it was never going to be that. People were like, oh, he's going to retire. He's going to 2311 Racing. He's going to go to Junior Motorsports. He's going to bring KBM to the Cup Series with Daniel Hemrick. He's going to join Penske. Just a whole bunch of things that were just never going to happen. But I appreciate the creativity of the internet. Instead, it was what we always thought it was going to be. An announcement that he's going to race his son, Brexton Busch, and they're going to do it at Millbridge driving micro sprints, which is cool for him, and Kyle's probably going to get his butt kicked by his son because, well, Kyle's a lot bigger than Brexton, and Brexton drives these cars a lot, but ultimately, it's very cool. It's cooler than Bronny James going to the NBA with LeBron James because, well, he didn't, force a roster spot, have him paid $6 million when somebody more deserving probably should be there, but that's a whole topic for a different day. Instead, this is Kyle just going down doing some grassroots racing with his kid in a discipline that he's trying to get better at, but he's not Kyle Busch that we expect him to be at. So while the internet thought it was going to be something major, it's major to Kyle. And if you want to tune in on Dirt Vision Wednesday night, you can do that. And watch he and Brexton race each other. I think it's a cool story, but it certainly was not what some people thought it was going to be. And listen, after a cup race on Sunday where he ran poorly, he's not going to tweet out that he's going to make an announcement on Monday and have that be some sort of gigantic seismic shift in his career. That was just not going to happen. But cool nonetheless for he, his family, his kid, and Kyle Busch fans everywhere. So getting into today's topics, Kyle Larson says he would have 50 NASCAR Cup Series wins if they still had the Gen 6 car. That clip made its rounds on Sunday night, Monday after the race, and a lot of people are like, no, he wouldn't. Yes, he would. And you got both sides of the fence here because Kyle Larson has quickly become a very polarizing character within the fan base, not necessarily because of what he said in 2020, but because there's the Kyle Larson fans that say he's the greatest driver in the world. Then there's the detractors that say he's not the greatest driver in the world because he spins out too much, he makes too many mistakes, and he's stepping on it too many times. Well, you can make an argument on either side of that. I honestly don't really care. He's a really good race car driver. Yeah, he makes mistakes sometimes. Is he fun to watch? Absolutely, because he drives hard every single lap. At the same time, 50 wins by now, that's stretching. He just got his 30th NASCAR Cup Series win on Sunday at Homestead. And for context, Tony Stewart only had 49 wins in his entire career. So Kyle Larson's saying that he would already have 50 wins. Now, that's not unheard of. Through 12 seasons, Jeff Gordon had 69 wins in that period. In Kyle Larson's 12 seasons, he has 30. Now, keep in mind, he did miss the 2020 season. He only raced 4 races that year, so he missed 32 of them. And now we're only 6 races into 2025. So that number could be 34, 35 by the end of the season. Could still be 30. Who knows? But to say 50, that's wild. Now, in the last year of the Gen 6 car, he did rack off 10 wins and a championship. A really impressive season. But you have to keep in mind, there was a development freeze that year. Nobody was developing those cars. They couldn't make any changes to them because they were switching to a new platform, that being the Gen 7 car in 2022. So while he did have 10 wins that year, it's a little bit... not that there should be an asterisk next to it, but it's worth noting that if, it had been 2020, I don't necessarily know if he would have that, or 2019 as well. Is he a talented race car driver? Hell yeah, he's super talented. And moving from Ganassi to Hendrick probably should have happened sooner than it did, but he was staying loyal to Ganassi, which you can't fault that, but ultimately it will, at the end of his career, cost him, a handful of wins that he could possibly have had if he had made that jump sooner. Now, 10 wins a season to get to 50, yeah, that's a lot. You're talking about another 20 wins over what he already has, and that would be basically 3 years and 6 races now in that time period. So you're looking at realistically like 6-7 wins a year there, and that's not crazy, right? It's something that could absolutely happen in that time period over what he already has won, which was 14 wins since 2022, the most in the Gen 7 era. So yeah, you're talking about a decent number of wins there. I'm talking about adding like 6 wins on each season, and it's slightly unrealistic here, but I love the confidence of it. Can he get to 50? Hell yeah, he's probably going to get to 50. Is he going to get to Gordon's 93? That's unlikely. It's 63 wins away from here. It's a number to chase. Gordon's 93, I think, should be the NASCAR wins record, modern era wins record. Richard Petty can have all-time wins record. That's fine. But in the modern era, I think the stats that people should actually care about, it should be 93 for Gordon. That's an attainable number. That's a number for drivers to go out and chase. Nobody's ever going to get to 200. And what's the point of having a record if you can't break it? So, yeah, I'm on board with modern era records versus overall records, but topic for a different day. So Larson saying he could get to 50, I don't think it's crazy. I definitely think he could have, but you're talking about winning a lot of races and continuing that success that Hendrick had in 2021 into 22. And don't get me wrong, they had success in 2020 as well. They won a championship with Chase Elliott. But we've also seen Hendrick have down years as well, where they just didn't have speed. 2018, you're like, all right, they're kind of struggling here a lot. And who's to say that doesn't happen again if they continued on with the Gen 6 car? It's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. Saw a lot of people being like, well, if he didn't throw so many races away at the end, and, you know, he's got X amount of second place and third place finishes, if something else goes right, he's easily over 50. Yeah, I think you're wrong here, but we don't live in an alternate reality. Like, this is the reality here, because if Gordon had the same thing go his way, he'd probably be at like 120 wins at this point as well, 7 championships. So yeah, you can say a lot of things, but 50 wins, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think it would have been tough to get there in the same time period. On Actions Detrimental this week, Denny Hamlin told a story about Richard Childress, which sounds like it came straight out of Days of Thunder, and heck, it might have to be included in Days of Thunder 2 whenever that happens. So after the Cup Series race on Sunday at Homestead, the Joe Gibbs racing teams had a police escort to the airport. Now, if you've been to a race, this isn't out of the ordinary. We see this happen a lot. I know people in the comments are going to be like, of course it was Joe Gibbs racing, they needed the escort. But okay, everybody gets an escort if they want it in certain situations, certain cities, stuff like that. Anyway, the Gibbs convoy is going. They got their police escort, and Denny said one of the JGR employees left a gap in their procession line here, and Richard, who had pulled over to the side of the road when the convoy was coming through, when the escort was coming through, decided that he was going to fill that gap. Well, the Joe Gibbs Racing employee wasn't happy about that, pulled up alongside of him to be like, hey, get out of line. You're not supposed to be in this escort. And Richard just hung a left and just turned right into the side of their car and just kept going, forced his way into line, decided he needed to be there. And Denny seemed absolutely gobsmacked by the fact that this happened, which, in fairness, we're talking about rental cars here that were likely loaned out by a dealership in the area. And Richard, probably in a Suburban, if I'm guessing here, just turned left into maybe, a Toyota Sequoia, probably a Toyota Sienna minivan, something along those lines, and just absolutely doored the shit out of it. All right, I mean, this is very on brand for RC here. He doesn't like to take crap from anybody, but like, damn, dude, we are actually on a public road where you can't just drive into people like it's a racetrack here. I wish there was video of it. I wish somebody had their dash cam running, because I want to see just how bad the damage was and what type of cars we're talking about here. And was it hard enough hit to deploy the airbag in the Toyota or in RC's car? And when RC got to the airport, what did he say to those people? Or is it just like, yeah, you know what, who cares at this point? Because yeah, just a wild time. If it was a rental car, hopefully they got the insurance on it where you can just walk away from it at the end of it, because that's the best thing to get. Well, I'm going to do a walk around on the vehicle real quick to make sure there's no damage. Doesn't matter. I bought the insurance, so I'm going to bring this thing back in one piece, most likely. But if I don't, hey, I paid for the insurance. I can walk away. Now, I will say this. I have never trashed a rental car. I'm very respectful with a rental car. I don't want to have it be beat up. I've gotten bad rental cars before where people have beat the crap out of them, and I hate that. At the same time, though, there's certainly people out there that will race these cars like they're in the 24 hours of lemons and just destroy them, which, hey, if you paid for your insurance, you're getting your money's worth out of it, right? But either way, RC just absolutely driving into the side of cars on public roads, which is still crazy to me that he just went ahead and did that. But maybe next time somebody from RCR or Chevy can call ahead and be like, hey, can we get a police escort too? Because we need to make sure Richard's not out here going all Grand Theft Auto on people and just destroying things. Hey, Wreckfest 2 is coming out soon though, so maybe he's just super hyped about that and wanted to get a little bit of action in before he sits down to play the game. Richard playing a video game, hilarious visual to me, because I assume he has zero idea on how to do anything there. All right, last topic of the day. Are we about to see Homestead return to hosting championship weekend for NASCAR? On Door Bumper Clear this week, Freddie Kraft said that last week drivers were scheduled to fly down on either Tuesday or Wednesday to Miami to announce with NASCAR that the championship weekend would be returning to Homestead Miami Speedway in 2026. But clearly something fell apart because it never got announced. Whether that was the fires happening or whether that was the fact that they didn't have the financials, lined up for it to work out, remains to be seen. Now, Jordan Bianchi from The Athletic wrote an article where he said that the vice mayor of Homestead said it's about 70-30 that they think they're going to get it, which I think that's kind of how most people feel. They're trying to put together a financial package for NASCAR to come there because NASCAR is getting one from Phoenix, and that's kind of one of the main reasons they're there. Plus, they put a lot of money into that racetrack. Great facility, racing, meh. Anyway, Homestead trying to put the same thing together, except they're hosting some big time events in 2026. So the county doesn't necessarily have all the money in the world to put towards NASCAR. Now, having said that, it still feels like this might be happening here. Just because it didn't get announced doesn't mean that it won't be announced. Yes, we've all seen the screenshot of the pre-ordered tickets for next year, where it has November 1st listed on the Homestead website as them hosting the race on November 1st, which could be, maybe. Phoenix also has that too, so very much seems up in the air right now. Seems like a placeholder. Seems like something that I'm not going to read too much into. At the same time, Freddie said that rumor mill in the garage area is Homestead in 26, Las Vegas in 2027. Now, that would be really fun. And NASCAR, of course, has talked earlier this year. Steve O'Donnell talked about a rotating championship race, something I think we all want to see. Unfortunately, they're kind of limited to the South and the West in November because it's cold and nobody wants to go to Kansas in November. Although it'd be a fun race, not going to be the most fan-friendly of temperatures and weather. So, got to stay somewhere south. That kind of limits you. Homestead, Miami Speedway, Daytona, if you want to do that. Talladega, again, not really want to do that. Atlanta, probably don't want to do that. Darlington, yeah, I think you could get away with Darlington still. Texas, hell no, nobody wants to do that. Phoenix, all right, we've already been there. And then you're kind of limited to nothing in Southern California at the moment. So, yeah, you've got a few options in line there, and then Las Vegas as well. Vegas makes a ton of sense. It's the entertainment capital of the world, world-class city with tons of amenities, everything to go along with it, tons of entertainment. It's an SMI track, though. And that would be a big-time shift away from what NASCAR has done since 2002, when they moved the last race of the year to Homestead Miami Speedway. It hosted championship weekend all the way up until 2019. Then Phoenix took over in 2020, and that's where we've been at since. Before that, it was in Atlanta. Everybody knows season traditionally ended in Atlanta for quite some time there. And ultimately, NASCAR would love to hold on to that championship date. At the same time, you got to rotate this race around. Fans are asking for it. Teams are asking for it. Phoenix just hasn't delivered on the excitement that I think NASCAR wants. And the Gen 7 car, the Truck Series, and the Xfinity Series all race really, really well in Las Vegas, the same way they all race really well at Homestead. So I think those are two really good options. Obviously, NASCAR would want something from SMI if they're going to give them the championship race. Probably a swap with the All-Star race as well. I saw somebody on the internet be like, oh, and probably millions of dollars because of the TV money that they get with it. All right, we need to talk about this real quick. The networks are not swapping dates. Like Fox isn't going to show the championship race because, the All-Star race date got swapped and stuff like that. Like that's just not happening here. Tracks all receive a payout, of course, from TV money as well. But in terms of ratings, they're pretty similar. 2.8 million for the All-Star or for the championship race, 2.5, nearly 2.6 million for the All-Star race. So they're not that crazy far off in terms of the amount of viewers that were tuning in. But ultimately, it's something that would probably be a bit of a trade-off there between the two companies, ISC being NASCAR, who owns those tracks, and then SMI being Marcus Smith and his family, who own the other tracks. I think it's something that needs to happen. I'm really excited if it does happen. And heck, a championship weekend in Las Vegas, that's certainly going to interest a lot more people coming out than, the random race that they have just currently in the playoffs as well. So let me know in the comments what you think about the Busch announcement. Kyle Larson saying that he'd have 50 wins by now. Richard Childress going Days of Thunder, as well as Homestead Miami Speedway, potentially Las Vegas hosting that championship race. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok @BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook @BreakHardBlog.